The aroma of exotic spices and the low hum of 100 alien conversations filled the dimly lit bar. Nestled on the outskirts of a bustling spaceport, the establishment catered to wanderers, mercenaries, and those with stories to tell. At a worn corner table, two figures were locked in one such exchange. One, a veteran hunter with scales shimmering beneath the subdued light, gestured emphatically as he recounted a tale. His companion, a young alien with wide, luminous eyes, leaned in eagerly, utterly absorbed by the thrilling narrative of the galaxy's deadliest predator. The acrid scent of ozone lingered in the air as Zatrak tightened his grip on the plasma rifle, its smooth hum a counterpart to the low growl echoing through the overgrown ruins. A seasoned hunter, Zatrak bore the scars of countless expeditions across the fringes of explored space. Scales shimmered on his armored forearms, catching the dim sunlight filtering through the shattered remnants of the once gleaming structure. His quarry, known only by the classification codes, was elusive. The hunt had stretched across weeks, winding through dense foliage and crumbling, unfamiliar architecture. This remote world, a speck on the galactic charts, teemed with life, yet his prey had vanished like a ghost. He'd been forced to rely on outdated tracking systems. The prey had a knack for technological disruption. A rustle drew his attention as Zatrak whirled around. There was a flash of movement in the shattered framework of the building, the flicker of something out of place in the overgrown world. "Enjoying the sights?" His voice, a clipped hiss, carried poorly in the humid air. "This world is far more dangerous than you imagine. Show yourself!" Silence hung thick around him. Zatrak hissed in disgust. His patience was wearing thin, and the thrill of pursuit had long worn off. These creatures were proving exceptionally intelligent. Too intelligent. A cold sense of unease settled in his gut. On most hunts, he was the apex predator. Now the roles felt eerily reversed. A snap of a twig made him spin, but it was only a native creature, reptilian and skittering, disappearing into a hollow in the crumbling wall. Zatrak growled in frustration. Was he being toyed with? Perhaps these creatures reveled in the chase itself, a chilling thought. The low growl rumbled through the ruins again, growing louder. It carried the hunter's instinct, a warning, yet somehow mixed with grim amusement. Zatrak narrowed his four eyes. This was no animal. His prey had cunning, far exceeding the brutish predators he typically dealt with. A strange prickling sensation crept down his spine, and he hissed again, louder this time. "Reveal yourself, coward!" He activated his thermal scanner, hoping for a signature to mark his target. The device flickered and wavered, filled with chaotic, indistinct forms. Whatever he was hunting, it was shielded from his technology, blurring seamlessly with the natural heat of the jungle. Frustrated, Zatrak lowered his scanner and tightened his grip on the plasma rifle. Fine. They wanted to play this game? He'd indulge them. Zatrak stalked deeper into the ruins, his armored boots crunching on rubble. His senses strained, searching for any subtle movement against the lush green backdrop. A shadow shifted. His reflexes honed through a lifetime of hunts kicked in, and he swung the plasma rifle towards a crumbling column. But it was merely a trick of the light, foliage swaying in a hot, humid breeze. Zatrak suppressed the urge to curse out loud. His prey was out there, taunting and toying with him, their silence far more unsettling than any roar. He swore silently, cursing the arrogance that had led him to underestimate these beings. His initial reports had dismissed them as primitive, relying on crude, inefficient tools and weaponry. How wrong he'd been. It now seemed they'd deliberately revealed enough to lure him here, carefully concealing their true capabilities and exploiting his expectations. Zatrak hissed in frustration and shifted his weight. His hunting gear felt cumbersome in the saturated air, another tactical advantage his prey seemed to possess. Their ability to adapt to this harsh environment was remarkable, suggesting a deep, instinctual understanding of the rhythms of the planet. As if on cue, a high-pitched screech pierced the air, jarring him from his thoughts. It was not an animal call, but something distorted, artificial. He was losing this battle of wits. The screeching rose in pitch, then cut off abruptly. The sudden silence was deafening. Zatrak's 4 ears twitched, straining to decipher the rustling of leaves and rustling of vines. There was something moving, encircling him. The thermal scanner sputtered, rendering only faint traces of heat that materialized, then vanished. A low thunk echoed behind him. It was followed by a metallic whisper and a sharp pain in his side. Zatrak whirled, plasma rifle blazing, firing blindly into the dense undergrowth. The bolt incinerated a giant fern, the air filling with a pungent smell of scorched plant matter. He'd scored a minor hit then. A strange, buzzing vibration thrummed from the ground beneath his armored boots. Panic flared, then was abruptly replaced by a wave of cold disorientation. Zatrak's knees buckled, and he collapsed, his rifle clattering to the moss-covered stone. Confusion washed over him. His limbs felt heavy, unresponsive. An unsettling numbness crept up his legs, and his keen insight dimmed. The jungle sounds, the rustle of leaves, the distant calls of strange creatures were fading into a dull drone. Through the haze, he saw a shape emerge from dense shadows, a silhouette against the vibrant green. It was not a creature of this world, tall, bipedal, moving with unsettling familiarity. Even with the swirling blur, he recognized the deliberate purpose in its stride. This was his hunter. A surge of adrenaline washed away the creeping numbness. With a desperate lunge, Zatrak reached for his fallen weapon, only to see it kicked out of reach by a worn, primitive boot. The silhouette crouched into focus. A face stared back at him, young, weathered, with startling bright eyes and a set jaw. The creature, no, the hunter, smiled thinly, revealing worn, uneven teeth. "You made this too easy," a voice rasped, rough but strangely familiar. It carried the guttural rhythms that had been haunting the comm system during the hunt. Zatrak hissed in defiance, struggling against the paralysis now gripping his entire body. "Don't worry." The figure knelt. Its smiling was almost mocking. "It'll wear off soon enough. Gotta make sure our prize stays alive for transport, don't we?" The creature spoke with a strange accent, one Zatrak couldn't quite place. Another figure emerged from the shadows, this one carrying a crude device of metal and wires. "Got the dart in him, Sarge?" The other, the Sarge, nodded. "He'll be out for a few more hours. Just what we need." Zatrak's eyes widened in horror. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He'd misjudged everything. These creatures were not the primitive beings from the outdated intelligence reports. They were something far more dangerous, patient, relentless, masters of camouflage and technological deception. And now, he was their prey. The figures moved closer, their outlines blurring as darkness crept into the corners of Zatrak's vision. His once proud hunting gear was stripped away, leaving him vulnerable and exposed. Panic battled with a creeping coldness as they hoisted his limp body over a shoulder. The ground was tilting, the jungle dissolving into a swirl of vibrant green and fading black. His comm unit was wrenched away, the last connection to his world severed. A final thought flashed through his fading consciousness. The galaxy's deadliest predator wasn't some snarling beast or technologically superior race. It was these relentless, ingenious creatures from an underestimated backwater planet. The world came back into focus slowly, like waking from a nightmare. Zatrak's head throbbed and his body felt stiff and sore. His senses returned in agonizing waves, the harsh glare of artificial lights, the sterile smell of antiseptic, and the constant murmur of unfamiliar voices. He blinked against the brightness, struggling to make sense of his surroundings. He lay on a narrow metal table bound with thick straps that dug into his scaled flesh. A translucent barrier pulsed above him, a shimmering energy field that hummed with a low, threatening tone. Voices echoed through the room, their language a cacophony of clicks, grunts, and whistles that made his headache intensify. Zatrak strained to decipher their meaning, but the words remained frustratingly out of reach. Suddenly, a different voice cut through the din. It was the rough baritone of the young hunter from the jungle, only now it was clear, crisp, and devoid of the strange distortions. The voice spoke with a language Zatrak recognized, Galactic Standard. "Good morning," or whatever passes for morning on your homeworld. "You've been out for a few cycles. How are you feeling? Don't try to move, by the way. Those restraints are pretty robust." The hunter materialized from the periphery of Zatrak's vision, still clad in the primitive attire from the jungle, but now moving through a sterile, technologically advanced chamber. He smiled wryly. "Not exactly the welcoming package you were expecting, I imagine." Zatrak snarled, the sound raw in his throat. He tugged futilely against the restraints, his fear now eclipsed by burning rage. "You will pay for this, creature!" The hunter simply chuckled. "Bold words, considering your position. Let's be realistic here, Zatrak. Your little expedition isn't about scientific curiosity anymore, is it? We picked up those transmissions, discussions about potential weaponization of our biology, the sale of hunting rights on our planet." He shook his head. "Not gonna happen." Disbelief mingled with fury. "You spied on our private communications?" The hunter looked at him with frank amusement. "We? Buddy, you invaded our home, armed to the teeth, ready to turn us into trophies. What did you expect, tea and biscuits?" "This world is listed as uninhabited," Zatrak spat back. The hunter's smile vanished. "By outdated regulations more concerned with profits than reality. We've been here far longer than your charts acknowledge." He leaned forward, an unsettling intensity replacing the earlier mockery. "And we will do whatever it takes to protect our home." Zatrak's four hearts hammered at the hunter's words. His world blurred with the sudden understanding of the colossal miscalculation he'd made. These creatures weren't primitive or docile. They possessed an ingenuity and a fierce determination that far surpassed any species he'd encountered before. It was the realization of a hunter who had become the hunted. The room fell silent, the weight of the hunter's words hanging heavy in the air. Panic flared again, the stark reality of his position sinking in. Out of options and overwhelmed, Zatrak found his defiance giving way to a cold dread. What will happen to me?" he asked, forcing his words past the constriction in his throat. The hunter seemed to consider his response. "Honestly, I don't know yet. You'll be held, studied. Maybe some of those eager scientists back home will pay handsomely for a live specimen." He shrugged. "There are options." "This is barbaric," Zatrak hissed, his voice a mere whisper now. The hunter laughed, a bitter bark. "Says the one who came to our world to hunt us? Consider it a lesson in perspective." He stood, pushing back from the table. "Get some rest, Hunter," he said with a heavy irony. "We'll have much more to discuss when you're feeling more cooperative." Zatrak watched the hunter stride out of sight, the sterile lights glinting off his retreating back. The energy field above him thrummed, trapping him just as effectively as any cage. The sounds of an alien facility swirled around him, a mockery of freedom he might never possess again. He closed his eyes, his mind raced, seeking escape routes, but finding only stark walls of impossibility. The predator had seen its last hunt. Now, Zatrak faced a different kind of survival, as a captive of the galaxy's most underestimated and most dangerous beings. Cycles bled into one another, and time warped into an endless haze within the facility's stark confines. Zatrak was a creature of action, a hunter. This confinement, this constant scrutiny and experimentation chipped away at his very essence. The creatures were meticulous. They studied his biology, mapped his reflexes, tested his limits, always pushing, always analyzing. They spoke to him in fragments, revealing glimpses of their world, vast cities, global networks, and weaponry that surpassed anything Zatrak had ever encountered. It was a horrifying realization. Had his entire species underestimated them so profoundly? There were factions among the hunters. Some, like the younger hunter, whose rough voice still haunted Zatrak's dreams, seemed intent on preserving the secrecy of their world. Others spoke of retaliation, of exploiting the knowledge gained from their captive for preemptive strikes against future threats. In the quiet moments when he was left alone with the humming energy field above and his own fear-filled thoughts, Zatrak began to understand the true ingenuity of them. They had not merely survived on this world, but had adapted, thrived, became its apex predators. Their tactics in the jungle mirrored their larger strategy: lure the enemy in, reveal a sliver of strength, and exploit their overconfidence. Shame gnawed at him, intertwined with a grudging admiration. Yet, beneath it all, a spark of survival flickered. He was a specimen now, a source of data, but that was all he was to them. They didn't understand a hunter's spirit. Even in chains, it could never be truly extinguished. Opportunity came unexpectedly. A lapse in security protocols, a momentary distraction of his guards. Zatrak, honed by countless hunts, recognized it instantly. Despite the months of captivity, his instincts remained sharp. With a surge of strength fueled by desperation, he lunged against the restraints. Pain ripped through his muscles as they tore, but the straps gave way. Zatrak stumbled, his body weakened by disuse, then lurched for the control panel beside the table. The technicians reacted instantly, their shouts echoing through the room. An alarm blared, harsh and insistent. Zatrak slammed a scaled fist into the panel, sending a burst of sparks through the delicate circuitry. The energy field flickered, faltered, and finally vanished. He was free. Chaos erupted. Security personnel poured into the room, brandishing sleek and unfamiliar weapons. Zatrak roared a primal challenge and lunged at the nearest figure. Claws raked against armor plating, and he wrenched a weapon from the startled hands. It pulsed in his grips, firing bolts of superheated energy that seared holes in the sterile walls. The confined space became a maelstrom of violence. Zatrak fought with the ferociousness of a cornered beast, fueled by the long-suppressed rage of the hunter turned prey. His body, weakened by confinement, found a final reserve of strength. But the creatures were many, relentless, and Zatrak knew their weapons were far more deadly than his improvised one. A blast struck him in the shoulder, searing pain radiating down his arm. He staggered, vision blurring. Then a figure, compact and powerful, tackled him to the ground. It was the young hunter, Sarge, as the others called him. They wrestled, locked in a desperate struggle against the backdrop of gunfire and cries. The end came swiftly, brutally. A blinding flare of light, a final jolt of agonizing pain, then blissful oblivion. Zatrak, the hunter who'd underestimated the galaxy's deadliest predator, lay lifeless on the cold metal floor. His death would serve a stark reminder. These creatures were never to be taken lightly again. The room fell silent. The veteran hunter, scales dull beneath the dim bar lights, took a long swig of his drink. The sharp burn was a warm distraction from the infamous tale of Zatrak. His companion, a younger alien with wide, curious eyes, finally broke the quiet. "So, you never discovered what world these creatures were from?" The veteran hunter snorted, a rough, grating sound. "No," he admitted. "They were meticulous. No trace was left behind. It's as if they and their world vanished into thin air." He swirled the amber liquid in his glass. "And honestly, perhaps it's for the best. Beings like that, it's less frightening to think of them as some lurking legend, rather than a terrifying reality out there in the vastness of space." The young alien shivered. "A ghost story to tell younglings," he agreed, taking a cautious sip of his own milder beverage. "But I still wish I knew their name. This race of hunters." The older hunter chuckled, a dark, humorless sound. "Oh, their name? It's simple, really. We just got it wrong all these years." He leaned in, a conspirational glint in his multifaceted eyes. "They call themselves human."